Welcome to our Traveler's Guide to Australia by Adam Zimmerman, Ashlyn Dodge, Stephen Boggs, and Camille Leathers.
Australia has a population of 25.69 million people, Irish making up 7.5% of it. Throughout history, the Irish have been an integral part of the Australian immigrant population. Irish-born immigrants and their descendants have been a key feature of the Australian population since the arrival of the First Fleet in New South Wales in 1788. The Irish played a significant role in the development of the Catholic Church in Australia. The contribution of the Irish-born and their descendants to Australia culture, such as their literature, music, sports, theater, filmmaking, and art, was considerably impactful. The Australian folk music scene provides plenty of evidence of what the genre owes to Ireland. By 1990, the international phenomenon of the Irish pub took hold in Australia's capital cities. Ireland has impacted the culture and population of Australia greatly. The celebration of St. Patrick's Day is one of the special occasions with activities that mirror the changing Irish Australia. Australia is linguistically and culturally diverse country with influences from more than 160 spoken languages. Most people in Australia speak English, but apart from that, 1.6% of people are Mandarin speakers. About 1.2 million people in Australia have a Chinese background, making it quite prevalent throughout the country. After English, Chinese is the second language that is most spoken at home and widely taught language in Australian schools. Here on the slide are some examples of some phrases in Mandarin Chinese. Australia's natural wealth comes from its vast amounts of coal, timber, copper, and iron ore. Australia has by far the most gold in the world at 14.3% of global supply. The rarity and physical features of gold have made it one of Earth's most prized possessions. Some places in Australia can still be mined for enough gold to make it profitable. Most gold mined today cannot be seen in the rock as it is very fine grained and in low concentrations. Western Australia has shown the most promise with gold being sufficiently concentrated within the rocks. Gold can be sold on international gold markets with fluctuating prices depending on the demand from buyers and prices from sellers. Australia consists of both open cut and underground mines. Gold seekers began coming to Australia in 1851, changing Australia's history. The gold rushes greatly expanded Australia's population, boosted its economy, and led to the emergence of new national identity.
It's hot in here.
Australia's system of government is a federation, a constitutional monarchy, and a parliamentary democracy. Often referred to as the Westminster system because it derives from the United Kingdom Parliament in Westminster, Australia is a federation of 6 states, each with its own government consisting of a governor and 2 chambered parliament for each state. Similar to the United States, the duties of the federal government and the division of powers between the Commonwealth and the states are established in a written constitution. Australia also consists of 2 self-governing territories. The Constitution defines the Parliament of Australia as the Queen, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. One political issue that is happening in Australia right now is the introduction of new political parties with similar names to the older ones, creating confusion and stress among voters. On this slide, it shows the 7 Australian territories as well as the Queen. Australia is the driest continent on Earth. It has minimal water in its rivers. It has the low runoff and the smallest area of wetlands in comparison to all other continents. 1/3 of Australia produces very minimal runoff. Their rainfall and stream flow are the most inconsistent in comparison to the rest of the world. The Australian Conservation Foundation, also known as the ACF, has missions to protect, restore, sustain the environment. Their big goals include solving the climate crisis, standing up for nature, redesignating economy funds, and fixing their democracy. A humanitarian crisis that is affecting Australia is asylum seekers. There has been an influx of people fleeing to Australia seeking protection from persecution and human rights violations from other countries. Since it is not an illegal act, it is very common, specifically in Australia. Asylum seekers are granted permanent residency when they seek refugee status. All well-known human rights organizations in Australia, such as Amnesty International Australia, employ advocacy and mobilization to apply pressure to governments to put an end to human rights violations, especially in categories of violence against women, indigenous people, and refugees as asylum seekers.
And now for the itinerary. We are going to start on Monday, January 2nd by flying from the Raleigh-Durham International Airport at 7:21 p.m. and arriving in Sydney, Australia on Tuesday, January 4th. We're going to land right here in Sydney and go to an Airbnb on Newtown Road. Our Airbnb is right near downtown, and we land at 8:50 p.m. So we check into our Airbnb and just hang out. On Wednesday, January 5th, we are going to go to the Taronga Zoo, which is one of Sydney's most famous attractions. The award-winning zoo is home to over 4,000 animals, including Australian native wildlife, as well as rare and endangered exotic animals. Overlooking the magnificent Sydney Harbour, the zoo is just 12 minutes from the city. And here is a map of all the things we can do at the zoo until we leave at about 12 p.m. to get lunch at Wasabi Plus, which is right on the way back to our Airbnb. After going back to our hotel, we're going to drive about 30 minutes to the Cumberland State Forest, which is very important because it is the biggest state forest in Australia. It is home to 5 threatened fauna species, 1 threatened flower species. The state forest is home to 98 acres of recreational use, such as hunting, fishing, trapping wildlife, hiking, and horseback riding.
Almost done.
After hiking some trails, we're going to go back to the Rocks, which is right in downtown, around 5 p.m. to sightsee and purchase street food for dinner. The Rocks is a neighborhood of historic laneways in the shadow of Sydney Harbour Bridge. Locals and tourists mingle at the open-air Rocks markets, purchasing food and handmade fashions. The area has some of Sydney's oldest pubs and many of the upscale restaurants with harbour views. After eating and doing some shopping, we return back to the Airbnb. On Thursday, January 6th, we're going to wake up at about 8 a.m. to pick up the rental car for the day and drive an hour to a cafe in Glenbrook to eat breakfast and start the morning in the Blue Mountains, which are located in New South Wales, bordering the Sydney metropolitan area, and offers locals and visitors an ideal escape from the city. The region comprises beautiful landscapes dotted with charming small towns and villages, and the chance to enjoy a wide variety of outdoor pursuits. Within the Blue Mountains, we're then going to drive about 40 minutes to Wentworth Falls to walk on a short path, stopping along the Jameson and Fletcher lookouts. Wentworth Falls hosts many different events and festivals during the year, including an autumn festival in April and a public school art and craft show in October. Wentworth Falls also have 2 lookouts, the Jameson and Fletcher. Off the Jameson lookout, you can see the Lincoln's Rock, Three Sister, Mount Solitary, and Ruined Castle. Fletcher's Lookout, which is a track of 1.4 miles long, located near the Blue Mountains, which is primarily used for hiking, walking, and bird watching. After walking on some paths, at about 12 p.m., we're going to drive 10 more minutes to the town of Laura to enjoy an assortment of tea and chocolates and stop by a popular local relaxation shop called IQ to buy some organic products. We're then going to drive back to the Airbnb to change, shower, and eat, which will only be about a 1 hour and 30-minute drive for the whole day. After being at our Airbnb, we are going to travel to the Sydney Opera House, which is just about 15 minutes away, for a workshop with a local artist at 3 p.m. We're going to take a tour of the Opera House and indulge in the opera kitchen with a meal before and after the tour. The Sydney Opera House was built on March 2nd, 1959, and was founded on October 20th, 1973. Located on the banks of Sydney Harbor, it is referred to as one of the most famous and distinct buildings in the 20th century. It is truly a masterpiece. The house wasn't just built for its looks, it has always put on sold-out performances also. And then we'll return to the Airbnb after our tour and workshop and food.
On Friday, January 7th, 2022, we are going to wake up at 6:30 a.m. and take the bus to Sydney Airport to take a flight to the HBA at Hobart in Tasmania, Australia. We're going to arrive in Hobart at 9:10 a.m. and then drive an hour to check into the Airbnb in Kuna, Tasmania to stay from Friday to Saturday. We'll then get lunch at Driftwood restaurant and then drive 15 minutes to White Beach, Tasmania to enjoy the clear water and white sandy beaches. And then we will return to the Airbnb. On Saturday, January 8th, we're going to take a shuttle to rental car building in Hobart to rent a car until January 11th. At noon, we'll drive 15 minutes to the Port Arthur Historic Site. And the significance of that is it's a 19th century penal settlement, which is now an open-air museum with ruins of huge penitentiary and convict the church. The site gives historic insight into the scary and real past around Tasmania and how a prison was to function then. Another tour is offered is the Escape from Port Arthur, which takes you on a tour across the terrain and describes the odd and determined ways prisoners would attempt to escape the prison. The After Dark package includes a 2-course dinner at the 1830 restaurant and bar with views of the penitentiary gardens. The guide directs you through a ghost tour after dinner and once it is dark. So we will begin a tour of the historic building, ruins, and gardens along with a 20-minute harbor cruise, and then begin the tour within the site called Escape from Port Arthur with detailed true crime stories. And then we will eat the provided meals at the 1830 restaurant and bar and attend a ghost tour within the After Dark. On Sunday, January 9th, we will eat breakfast at a cafe on the way to the caves, and then we will drive 3 hours to the Hastings Caves and Thermal Springs to go on a tour of the underground caves and swim in the springs. The significance of that is the Hastings Caves are over 40 million years old, but if you don't want to go into the caves, then you can always relax back on top of the ground in the mineral-rich thermal springs. After you get done either soaking in the springs or walking in the caves, you can walk the easy walking trails and have a nice barbecue with friends and family, or enjoy the surroundings and watch wildlife around you. After that, we will drive 3 more hours to Bruny Island to enjoy lunch and a 3-hour wilderness cruise. And then we will end the evening with a Cape Bruny Lighthouse sunset tour and eat dinner on the boat. After that, we will drive 2 hours to Mona, Tasmania to stay in a hotel for Sunday night.
On Monday, January 10th, 2022, we will wake up and drive 2 hours to Lancaster, Tasmania, enjoy a hot air balloon over the Tasmanian countryside with a meal included, and photos taken. We will check into the Grand Hotel at Lancaster for the night. We will enjoy a nice dinner at a restaurant, and then during the evening, we will gaze at the stars at the Lancaster Planetarium. The Lancaster Planetarium has been open to visitors since 1968. It has also become a part of the Victoria Museum at Inverness in 2009. The planetarium has just been marked there 50 years in 2018. We will see the southern night sky projected onto a dome ceiling with additional space, special visual effects, and commentary. The effect is so realistic it is like being out under the stars. It would be an amazing experience. Then we will return to our rental car and return to our hotel. On Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, we will wake up and take a flight back to Sydney, Australia from the Luxe Airport. Enjoy a local Italian lunch at a kindred restaurant. We will bridge climb Sydney, climb the Sydney Harbour Bridge during the afternoon. Enjoy the relaxing evening at the Darling Harbour with shopping, eating, museums, and entertainment. The Darling Harbour is adjacent to the center of Sydney. Darling Harbour has many things to do during the day and night. You can see the Sydney Harbour and fireworks every Saturday night. Darling Harbour got its name from Lieutenant General Ralph Darling, who was governor of New South Wales from 1825 to 1831. It was referred to as Cockle Bay until the governor renamed it after himself. After the harbour, we had to be back at the Syd Airport at 8 p.m. for the flight back to RDU. There are several ways we intend to reduce our carbon footprint. Since Australia is a large country and requires us to travel from one spot to another, we have chosen to rent cars that are great on fuel efficiency, such as the Hyundai Kona. If we are not using our car to get from one place to another, we are using public transportation, such as buses and trains. Lastly, one of the easiest ways to limit our carbon footprint is to do simple tasks such as turning off the ceiling fans and lights in the rooms that we will be staying in addition to being mindful of how much water we are using when we are taking a shower.
There are many benefits to us traveling to Australia. There are many different cultural sites for us to explore. In addition to a multitude of parks that can expand our knowledge on certain wild species that are not present or common in the United States, we also get to socialize with people from different cultures and get a new perspective of the world. Lastly, we are able to immerse ourselves into another country with different cultures and history that can open up our eyes to other parts of the world.
Thanks
for traveling with us.